Well, the last few weeks we've been looking at the book of Daniel, different portions of the book of Daniel. We've been looking at how it is that the life of Daniel can be comparable to life in America today. There are some similarities and some differences. But we've been looking at Daniel chapter 1, Daniel chapter 3, Daniel chapter 5. It seems like we're doing every other. But today we're in Daniel chapter 6. And last week, you may remember, Daniel he was promoted to being the third highest in command. But it mattered little because the kingdom was overthrown that night. But nonetheless, he continued to be of service to the king, the new king, King Darius. And so it's interesting, all throughout his life, it doesn't matter what happens, it doesn't matter what kind of government it is, he continues to do what he can to help. And so Daniel is getting rather elderly at this point. He's probably in his 80s. We know that last week 66 years have passed since the week before, the stories that we were looking at. And so he's older now, but he's still in service, and he's highly respected by this new king as well. And that's really not a surprise, as we remember back in Daniel chapter 1, when it said that Daniel pretty much did everything with excellence to the best of his ability. And when you do that, then people tend to respect you. And if they respect you, they may come to respect the God that you serve. And so this was the case for King Darius. He liked Daniel a lot. He respected him. And so Daniel was his favorite, which is always a problem in the Bible. It's always a problem when somebody is a favorite because it's never good for that person. And that's the case in Daniel too. He was the king's favorite, and the others took notice of this. And they decided they were going to do something about it. They're going to bring Daniel down. And so they tried to dig up dirt on him. And they can't really do it. He's pretty squeaky clean. And so when they can't dig up dirt, they take a play right out of the playbook of a presidential election campaign, and they create dirt. Right? That's what you do. If you can't come up with anything, you create it. And so they created something. They knew that Daniel was very religious. They knew that he was very devoted to his Jewish God. And so they thought, well, we'll get him in trouble this way. So here's what they did. They went to King Darius, and they played on his ego. And they said, why don't you make a law that says for the next 30 days, you're great, right? So why don't you make a law that in the next 30 days, everyone is supposed to honor you and worship you, and if they don't, then they'll be thrown into the lion's den. So basically, they'll be killed. And this seems really weird to us, I know. But it wasn't that uncommon to use animals to punish people. And it also, as I mentioned last week, wasn't uncommon for people to worship their rulers. Some people still do today. And so what he did is he agreed to this foolishly, and he created this law. Well, now, all they had to do is catch Daniel praying to his God. So that's what they did. They caught him because Daniel was in the habit of 3 times a day praying to God, facing Jerusalem, the Holy Land. And so they catch him in this, and he's caught in the act of prayer. And so they bring him to the king, and they say, Daniel has been praying to his God instead of to you. And so the king is obviously distraught over this because he likes Daniel. But yet they point out, you created a law that even you can't undo. And so, this is an interesting story, but he throws or places Daniel in the lion's den. And he prays, he hopes that he's okay, closes the lid, and waits to see what happens the next morning. Well, Daniel is praying in there, and the next morning when he goes to check on him, you know what happens. He's fine, he's well, and so he comes out of that den, and when he comes out of that den, then the king makes a new law. The king says, now everyone must honor and revere Daniel's God. And now he doesn't say if it's exclusive, that it's necessarily only Daniel's God, but they have to show respect to Daniel's God. Quite a story. And if you were in worship last week, you know that this story has a lot of parallels to last week's story about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they were tested for their faith and they were told to worship the golden statue, otherwise they would be thrown into a fiery furnace. Well, they responded the same way Daniel did, and they continued to live according to their convictions. They were thrown in the furnace, but they were miraculously healed. And just like last week, I don't want to focus on the miraculous healing, but I want to look instead at the way that Daniel responded to the decree. And he responded much like his friends did. He did not make a big show of it. He didn't say, well, I'm not going to do that because I know who my God is and I'm going to serve my God and I'm not going to serve any of these other gods and I'm not even going to serve the king. No, he didn't make a big spiel. He didn't give a speech. He just continued to live according to his convictions. And sometimes that is the proper response, right, for us as Christians. Sometimes if we feel that our faith is attacked or something's not right, sometimes the best response is just to keep living according to our convictions. As long as we can continue to live out our faith without being, running into trouble, then we continue to live out according to our faith. And that's what he did. But for him, he got into trouble. I don't know if he would have gotten into trouble if there wasn't this political thing going on or not, but it doesn't matter. He got into trouble. Caught in the act of prayer. How many of us would be caught in the act of prayer? That would be something, wouldn't it? But Daniel was willing to continue praying, even at the expense of his own life. For many of us, myself included, sometimes it's hard to pray because we're just busy, right? Let alone that being afraid about our life. And so we have to wonder, leads us to question, what would it be like if our faith became illegal? Now, it's pretty hard to imagine, and I don't think that that's happening around the corner anytime soon, but if our faith became illegal, how would we react? How would we respond? Would there be much for us to give up? Does our faith consist of much, or for some, does our faith consist mostly of Sunday mornings? Because if my faith doesn't consist of much, then there won't be much to give up, right? Other than the fact that Sunday mornings might feel a little weird. But other than that, for some, it may be that their life pretty much goes on as usual. For Daniel, that wasn't the case. Now, I don't know all about Daniel's life. The Bible doesn't tell us, but I'm guessing he was in the habit of prayer for a long time, starting from the very beginning of his life, probably from a young age. And so this was ingrained in him. And so it was just habit, And sometimes we call this prayer and other things spiritual disciplines. And that word discipline, usually we think of in a negative term. We think of discipline as being when you've done something wrong. But discipline can be a positive term too. If any of you have been involved in any kind of sport or any kind of activity, whether it could be sports, it could be music, you have to be disciplined. And you have to train. And you have to practice. And you have to get ready in order to do your part and do it well. We know this from the bell choir, as we look at the different bells and how they have to time it at the right way and play it at the right time. It takes discipline. And so discipline can be a good thing because it allows us to do things that we otherwise might not be able to do. And so it's the same thing with our faith, spiritual disciplines or spiritual habits that help us to grow in our faith, to have a foundation, so that when a time of crisis comes, whether it be our faith being illegal or anything else, that we're ready, that we have a foundation. Daniel was ready. But there's a difference between liking Jesus and believing in Jesus and, just kind of liking the idea of Jesus and actually following Jesus, doing what he said, living according to his example. There's a big difference there. It'd be like if I told you that I was a runner and you said, well, I haven't seen Mike out running. And so you go up to me and you ask, now you say you're a runner, but I never see you running. And I say, well, I am a runner, but I just really find it hard to actually get out and run. And so I like running. I like the idea of running. I read about running. I know about all of the health benefits of running, how it statistically helps you to live longer and to have less of a chance of having certain illnesses and diseases. And actually, it's not that bad for your knees, but studies are showing it can actually help your knees. And so, I can list off all these facts, but gosh, I just don't ever really actually get out and run anymore. Well, guess what? If I don't run, I'm not a runner, right? And the same thing, I can like the idea of Jesus, and I can believe in Jesus, and I can think he's a pretty neat guy, but if I don't actually do what he said, if I don't actually try to live according to his example, I say try because we all make mistakes, but if I'm not seeking to live according to the example of Jesus in my own life, then how can I really say I'm following Jesus? Well, I'm not. And so we have to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be really committed? What does it mean to have that foundation in our life so that when a crisis comes, we're better able to handle it? Now, that's not to say that if you have spiritual habits that you're going to be able to you'll be fine when crisis comes. Crises are crises because they're hard. They're hard to deal with, but we can have more of a foundation. There's a great Bible study material out called A Disciple's Path. And in it goes through 7 spiritual habits that are good for Christians to have. And these include things like prayer, scripture reading, worship, small group participation, serving others in ministry, financial generosity, and telling others about God, evangelism. And let me tell you, if you have all 7 of those things mastered in your life, you are in good shape. Now still, even with all those things, a crisis can shake us. It can shake us down to our very core. But we'll have more of a foundation to lean upon, and there's more of a chance that we'll still be able to hold on to our faith. That's how it was for Daniel. He was able to hold on to his faith, and he was able to continue praying. And he was rewarded for it. In this case, he was protected by God. Now, we are not promised protection. We know that. We're not promised protection from God. Sometimes we like to think that we are. But as we know, sometimes in one case somebody's protected in a wreck, in another case somebody dies in a wreck. Why is one different than the other? Those are hard questions to answer. All we can say is that we're not always promised that we are going to avoid trouble. And we're not promised that we are always going to be protected from illness or injury or any of those things or crisis in our lives. But what we are promised is that God is going to be with us. And if we know that God is going to be with us, then we can stick with God even when we're going through those hard times. And even if it feels that God isn't near, God is near. And so we can hold fast to that. So I just want to encourage you that as we think about the story of Daniel and the lion's den, usually we think about the miracle, and rightly we should. That's pretty amazing. But I also want you, as we think about that, to think about your own life in times when you would say you're surrounded by lions, metaphorically, when you have crisis. And when you do, I hope that you will have those disciplines to lean upon. We prepare for a storm not when the storm is here. If we start to prepare for a storm when it's here, it's too late. We prepare for a storm in the sunny days so that when the storm comes, we're ready. And it's the same with our faith. We prepare ahead of time, before the crisis, developing those spiritual disciplines in our lives so that when that crisis comes, we'll be ready. And so my hope is that for you, that you will seek to do that. Maybe for some of you, you are going through crisis right now. And you would say, if you were honest, you would say, I'm not ready. And if so, that's okay. But just start where you are and start praying and start working on those spiritual disciplines and lean upon God. If you're going through a time that we would call calm or sunny skies, then I would encourage you still, don't assume that you can just coast along in your faith and then be okay when the crisis comes. Prepare now. Get in the habit of prayer, scripture, all those things. Get in the habit of practicing your faith day in and day out so that when that time comes, you'll be ready. And you'll still be shaken and it'll still be hard. But you'll know that you have God to lean on. And I know that God will be with you.